Have you ever caught yourself mid-sentence talking for 3 straight minutes to justify a simple no? You decline an invitation, and instead of stopping at a polite, "I won't be able to make it," your brain floods with panic. You start offering a timeline of your schedule, a breakdown of your energy levels, and a dozen micro-reasons just to prove that your decision is valid, logical, and approved by the universe. Pause for a moment and look at what just happened. You didn't just decline an event, you put yourself on trial. You treated your own life choices like a defendant in a courtroom, begging a jury of casual acquaintances, coworkers, or family members to hand down a verdict of not guilty. Welcome to the hidden prison of chronic over-explaining. In his eye-opening book, Stop Explaining Yourself, author Paul Anthony exposes a quiet psychological epidemic. Most of us go through life believing that being polite means making sure everyone else completely understands, approves of, and validates our decisions. We think that if we just explain hard enough, clear enough, and long enough, people won't be upset with us. But the reality is entirely the opposite. When you over-explain, you send a silent, subconscious signal to the world: my choices are up for debate. Think about that. Every time you offer an unsolicited paragraph of justification, you open the door to negotiation. You invite opinions, advice, doubt, and critique into a space that belongs exclusively to you. If you say, "I'm not coming because I'm exhausted," you leave room for someone to say, "Oh, come on, 1 hour won't hurt." But if you simply say, "I won't be able to make it, but I hope you have a wonderful time," you close the door to debate. You establish quiet, unshakable dignity. Throughout this deep dive, we are going to break down the core principles from Paul Anthony's masterclass on personal autonomy. We are going to examine why you feel this compulsive need to defend your existence, how it quietly drains your mental energy, and step-by-step frameworks to reclaim your peace without starting a war. If you are ready to stop apologizing for taking up space, take a deep breath. Let's look at why you started explaining yourself in the first place and how you can finally put an end to it.
To stop a behavior, you have to understand its engine. Why do some people walk through life completely unfazed by what others think, while others lose sleep over whether a distant acquaintance approved of their weekend plans? Paul Anthony points out that chronic over-explaining is rarely just a quirky communication habit. It is an emotional survival mechanism. It is born in the past, usually during childhood or formative environments, where expressing a simple preference felt dangerous, unsafe, or heavily penalized. Think back. Were you raised in an environment where saying no was treated as an act of rebellion or disrespect? Were your boundaries constantly questioned, crossed, or ridiculed? When children grow up around authority figures who demand deep justifications for every natural impulse, why do you want that? Why are you tired? Why can't you just do what I say? They internalize a core toxic belief: my instincts cannot be trusted. As a result, that child grows into an adult who believes that safety can only be achieved through preemptive defense. They feel that if they explain every motive, detail, and thought process, nobody can accuse them of being selfish, lazy, or wrong. Over-explaining becomes a psychological shield. You think, if I give them every single fact, they won't get mad at me. But here is the irony that Anthony highlights. Explaining yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you is like watering plastic flowers. It takes massive amounts of energy, and it yields zero results. The people who truly love, respect, and value you do not require a 10-point PowerPoint presentation to accept your boundaries. They don't need a legally binding affidavit to understand why you need a quiet night at home or why you are changing career paths. They trust your character, which means they trust your choices. When you realize that your compulsive need to explain stems from old conditioning rather than current reality, something profound happens. You stop blaming yourself for being weak and start recognizing that you were simply trying to stay safe in a world that demanded too much justification. Recognizing this pattern is the first step toward breaking it. But once you stop explaining what fills the silence, that brings us directly to the art of quiet boundaries.
When people first learn about boundaries, they often swing like a pendulum from one extreme to the other. They spend years being a passive doormat, absorbing everyone else's demands, until they finally reach a breaking point. Then, fueled by resentment, they build massive, explosive walls. They snap, yell, slam doors, and issue aggressive ultimatums. They think that's a boundary. Paul Anthony explains why this approach almost always backfires. Loud, angry boundaries are rarely about protection. They are usually about a desperate cry for control. When you scream a boundary, you are still seeking a reaction. You are still looking outward, waiting to see if the other person is intimidated enough to comply. True boundaries, on the other hand, are quiet, calm, and entirely self-contained. Think of a physical fence around a property. Does a secure homeowner stand on their porch shouting at passers-by, reminding them that the grass belongs to private property? No, the fence is just there. It is quiet. It doesn't argue, it doesn't negotiate, and it doesn't care if someone likes the color of the wood. It simply defines where one space ends and another begins. Setting a quiet boundary in your personal life looks remarkably similar. It sounds like, "That doesn't work for me. I won't be participating in this conversation. I love you, but I am hanging up now." Notice what is missing from those sentences. There are no excuses, there are no apologies, there are no historical references, bulleted arguments, or emotional appeals. When you set a quiet boundary, you stop managing other people's emotional reactions. Most over-explainers are professional emotional babysitters. You spend half your mental bandwidth trying to predict how someone will feel about your choices, crafting your words so carefully that you accidentally erase your own needs in the process. Paul Anthony challenges you to drop the babysitting job. You are responsible for your own actions, honesty, and kindness. You are not responsible for managing the disappointment of someone who wanted you to sacrifice your well-being for their convenience. When you embrace quiet boundaries, you stop trying to control how people perceive you, and ironically, that's precisely when people begin to respect you on a completely different level.
Let's look in the mirror for a moment. Why is it so terrifying to let someone be disappointed in us? Why does a single furrowed brow or a slightly passive-aggressive text message from a coworker send our nervous system into a state of high alert? Paul Anthony dives deep into the psychology of approval addiction. Humans are hardwired for tribal belonging. For thousands of years, being cast out of the tribe meant physical death. Our ancient brains still treat social disapproval as a life-or-death emergency. In modern society, this ancient wiring manifests as chronic people-pleasing. We trade our authenticity for acceptance. We say yes when we mean hell no. We laugh at jokes we don't find funny. We take on extra projects we don't have time for, all because somewhere along the way, we adopted a silent rule. If everyone is happy with me, I am safe. If someone is upset with me, I am in danger. This rule is a psychological trap because it makes your emotional stability entirely dependent on external weather patterns. If everyone around you is in a good mood, you feel okay. But the moment someone sighs, rolls their eyes, or questions your decision, your internal world collapses. Anthony points out that when you constantly seek approval through over-explaining, you are actually teaching people to manipulate you. Think about it from the other side. If someone asks you for a favor and you immediately launch into a nervous, defensive explanation of why you can't do it, you are showing them your cards. You are signaling that your no is fragile. Manipulative or emotionally immature people pick up on this instantly. They will poke at your explanations, find the holes in your logic, and use your own words to guilt-trip you into compliance. Breaking free requires a radical shift in perspective. You must accept that disappointment is a normal, healthy part of human interaction. You are not responsible for keeping everyone comfortable. In fact, trying to ensure that nobody is ever disappointed by your choices is a form of arrogance. It assumes that other people are fragile children who cannot handle the basic friction of reality. When you give people the room to be disappointed by your boundaries, you grant them emotional autonomy. And more importantly, you grant yourself the freedom to finally breathe.
Knowing theory is one thing, but how do you actually handle those high-pressure moments in real time? When someone corners you with a demand, a passive-aggressive question, or an intrusive probe into your personal life. Your nervous system wants to panic and start talking. How do you break that reflex? Paul Anthony introduces a powerful communication tool, the minimalist response. A minimalist response is a statement that honors your boundary while starving the conversation of unnecessary fuel. It gives just enough information to be polite, but zero ammunition for debate. Let's look at some real-world applications across different scenarios. Scenario A, the unsolicited nosy question. The old way: why are you changing jobs? Is everything okay at your current place? Did you get into an argument with your boss? Well, I heard that industry is unstable right now, followed by 10 minutes of nervous justification. The minimalist way: I'm just ready for a new chapter. Period. Full stop. No elaboration. Scenario B, the guilt trip invitation. The old way: I'd love to come, but my cousin is visiting, and you know how rare that is. Plus, I have that report due on Monday morning, and honestly, I've just been feeling so run down lately. The minimalist way: I won't be able to make it this time, but I hope you have a fantastic evening. Scenario C, the unsolicited advice. Yeah, I tried that diet before, but my metabolism is weird, and my doctor said, and plus my schedule makes it hard. The minimalist way: thanks for sharing. I'm finding what works best for me right now. Notice the elegance of these minimalist responses. They are firm, polite, and completely unshakable. They do not invite a counter-argument because there is nothing left to argue against. You haven't given them a list of logical premises to tear down. You've simply stated a personal reality. When you first start using minimalist responses, it will feel deeply uncomfortable. You will feel an intense physical urge to keep talking to fill the awkward silence. Paul Anthony advises, let the silence sit. Silence is not your enemy. It is your ally. Silence is the space where other people process the fact that your boundary is not up for negotiation. Embrace the pause, hold your ground, and watch how quickly the dynamic of your relationships transforms. If over-explaining is the symptom and people-pleasing is the engine, what is the ultimate cure? It is the cultivation of internal validation. Most of us live our lives like external corporations, waiting for an annual audit. We look to our partners, our parents, our bosses, our social media followers, and even random strangers to hand us a certificate that says, you are doing a good job. You are smart. You are worthy. Your choices are correct. The danger of outsourcing your self-worth is simple. Whoever holds the stamp of approval also holds the power to crush you. If your sense of peace depends on everyone agreeing that your choices are valid, you are living as an emotional hostage. Paul Anthony emphasizes that true self-trust means making decisions that align with your deepest values, and then standing by them, even if nobody else in the room claps for you. Imagine buying a house, starting a business, ending a relationship, or choosing a completely unconventional career path. If you need everyone around you to understand and validate your choice before you feel okay about it, you will never take bold action. Because people can only understand things from the level of their own perception. If someone has a small, fearful worldview, they will project that fear onto your ambitious goals. If you stop to explain yourself to them, they will talk you out of your destiny. True maturity is realizing this profound truth. You do not need anyone else's permission to live your life. How do you build this muscle of internal validation? It starts with daily micro-decisions. Next time you make a choice, pause before telling anyone about it. Notice the urge to broadcast your decisions for immediate validation. Sit with your own choice. Ask yourself, do I believe in this? Does this honor my values? If the answer is yes, that is the only stamp of approval you need. When you no longer require outside applause, your energy shifts entirely. You stop moving through life as a pleaser looking for a pat on the head, and you start moving as the sovereign author of your own story. One of the biggest fears people have when they start setting boundaries and dropping their over-explaining habit is, won't people think I've changed? Won't they get angry or abandon me? It is a valid fear. When you change the rules of a dynamic, the people who benefited from the old rules will often push back. If you have spent 10 years being the person who always says yes, always explains themselves, and always bends over backward to keep the peace, your sudden shift to calm, quiet boundaries will cause ripples. Some people might test you. They might say things like, "Why are you being so distant lately? You used to be so open. Now you're acting secretive. What's your problem? Why are you taking everything so seriously?" Paul Anthony reminds us that these pushbacks are not a sign that you are doing something wrong. They are a sign that your boundaries are actually working. When someone reacts with resistance to your healthy boundary, you don't need to panic, and you don't need to over-explain your new behavior either. You don't need to sit them down and deliver a 20-minute lecture on personal growth. Instead, you respond with calm, loving consistency. "I'm not being distant. I'm just taking care of my energy right now. I value our relationship. I'm just making different choices for my time." Notice how there is no defensiveness in those statements. You are not apologizing for evolving. You are simply holding the line with grace. Over time, people adjust. Healthy relationships will recalibrate around your new, stronger boundaries. People will realize that you are no longer a pushover, which paradoxically leads to deeper, more authentic respect. And if certain toxic relationships cannot survive your self-respect, then letting them go isn't a loss. It is an upgrade to your peace of mind.
As we bring this deep dive into Stop Explaining Yourself to a close, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What is life like on the other side of this habit? Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and realizing that you no longer owe anyone a performance. Imagine making a decision, big or small, and feeling a deep, unshakable sense of calm in your chest, knowing that you don't have to convince a single soul that you made the right call. When you stop over-explaining, you reclaim mountains of mental and emotional energy. Energy that used to be wasted on rehearsing conversations in your head, second-guessing your choices, and worrying about how other people perceive you is suddenly redirected right back where it belongs, toward your goals, your creativity, your peace, and your joy. Paul Anthony's message is ultimately a liberating reminder that your life does not belong to a committee. You are the author, the director, and the main character. You do not need to hand out free scripts, explain your plot twists, or apologize for the direction your story is taking. Your choices belong to you. Your boundaries belong to you. Your peace belongs to you. Stop putting yourself on trial. Stop watering plastic flowers. Drop the defense attorney routine. Step down from the witness stand and start living your life with quiet, undeniable authority.
If you found value in this deep dive, hit that like button so YouTube knows to share this message with other overthinkers and people pleasers who need to hear it today. Subscribe to Right Mindset and ring that notification bell because we have incredible book breakdowns, productivity masterclasses, and mental resilience guides dropping every single week. Thank you for investing your time here today. Remember, your peace is non-negotiable. Your boundaries are sacred, and you never have to apologize for protecting your energy. Take care, stay strong, and I will see you in the next video.